Titles within the British monarchy are not decorative. They are instruments of rank, access, precedence, and constitutional positioning. A dukedom is not merely a courtesy, it is a statement of proximity to the crown. A princely style is not sentimental, it signals standing within the institution itself. The authority to grant such titles rests with the sovereign. The authority to remove them is far more complex. It sits at the intersection of crown, parliament, and public legitimacy. And when that authority is exercised, it alters not only an individual's status, but the balance of the monarchy's internal order. What is at stake is not reputation alone. Titles determine who appears on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, who represents the nation abroad, who holds patronage over institutions, and who remains within the formal line of royal duty. Remove a title, and you remove structural access. You redraw hierarchy in real time. That is why the rules governing royal titles are guarded with precision. Many assume titles are permanent once bestowed. In reality, they exist within a web of legal instruments, parliamentary statutes, letters patent, and sovereign discretion. Some rules are ceremonial in nature, enforced quietly within palace walls. Others require legislative action. And at the highest level, removal of a title can become a constitutional act involving the British government itself. The first protocol is deceptively simple. Titles are held at the pleasure of the sovereign. The monarch, currently King Charles III, inherits not only the crown, but the prerogative to shape the titled structure beneath it. Through letters patent, a sovereign may redefine who is entitled to be called prince or princess, who may use the style Royal Highness, and who may not. This is not theoretical. In 1917, King George V restricted princely titles to limit the size and public burden of the royal house during wartime. The rule exists to protect institutional clarity. If too many carry the rank of prince, the title loses structural meaning. Enforcement here is quiet but absolute. A new letters patent can be issued without parliamentary debate. The consequence is immediate. A grandchild once styled prince can become simply lord. Public life adjusts accordingly, invitations change, official listings are amended. It happens without spectacle, but the demotion is unmistakable. The second protocol concerns the style His or Her Royal Highness. This is distinct from a peerage title such as Duke or Earl. The Hrut style signals active senior status within the royal structure. It governs precedence at state occasions and determines representational authority. The sovereign controls its use. We have seen this in practice. When Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, stepped back from senior royal duties, it was agreed they would no longer use their Hrut styles in practice. They technically retain them, but without operational use, the status becomes dormant. The enforcement mechanism here is negotiated, yet the authority rests with the crown. The message is measured. Rank without function carries no institutional weight. A third rule involves conduct that brings the crown into disrepute. Royal titles are entwined with public trust. While private life exists, scandal at a certain level becomes a constitutional concern. In such circumstances, the sovereign may distance the institution from the individual by removing honorary military appointments and royal patronages. This is a form of internal discipline. Consider the case of Prince Andrew. In 2022, following legal controversy and intense public scrutiny, he relinquished his military affiliations and royal patronages. He no longer uses the Hrut style in public capacity. Notably, however, his dukedom was not removed. That distinction matters. Stripping a dukedom requires parliamentary action under the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917 or new legislation. Removing patronages does not. Here we see the layered structure of enforcement. Some titles fall directly under sovereign discretion, others require statutory authority. The monarchy protects itself incrementally, escalating response depending on institutional threat. A fourth protocol concerns succession and legitimacy. Titles attached to lineage can be altered if succession laws are breached or reinterpreted. Parliament ultimately controls succession to the crown, as established through statutes such as the Act of Settlement and the Succession to the Crown Act 2013. Should Parliament alter succession rules, titles tied to position in the line may shift overnight. The enforcement power here lies not in the palace, but in Westminster. The monarch reigns, but Parliament legislates. If Parliament were to declare a line invalid under law, princely rank associated with that line would effectively collapse. The monarchy cannot override statute. This dual authority is fundamental to constitutional monarchy. These early protocols reveal a pattern. Lower-tier titles and styles are subject to sovereign refinement. Public scandal invites reputational containment. Legal status requires parliamentary involvement. Each layer carries greater structural weight than the last. Yet the most consequential rules are not those concerning etiquette or even scandal. They are those that redefine who belongs within the working core of monarchy itself. And as we move further into the hierarchy of enforcement, the power to remove a title becomes not merely corrective, but constitutional. In the next tier, removal ceases to be a matter of style or patronage. It becomes a question of legislative authority, national identity, and the survival of institutional legitimacy. When removal crosses into the realm of peerage, the procedure changes entirely. A dukedom, earldom, or barony is not granted lightly, and it cannot be erased through palace announcement alone. These titles are embedded in British law. They are part of the peerage system, a structure intertwined with Parliament itself. To remove such a title requires statutory authority. The primary instrument is the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. It was introduced during the First World War when several British peers held German allegiances and actively supported enemy powers. Under that act, Parliament gained the ability to strip titles from those who bore arms against the United Kingdom. The power is rarely invoked, but it remains active. The enforcement mechanism lies with the Privy Council and Parliament, not solely the monarch. This distinction is significant. A sovereign may withhold favour, but a peerage can only be revoked through legislation. If a duke were deemed to have acted against national interest, a bill would be introduced. Debate would follow. A vote would be taken. Only then could the title be removed. The process is public and constitutional. It signals national repudiation, not merely royal displeasure. The next protocol moves deeper still: abdication. When Edward VIII chose to marry Wallis Simpson in 1936, the crisis was not personal alone. It was constitutional. As sovereign, he embodied the Church of England and the state. His decision required parliamentary intervention across the Commonwealth. The Abdication Act of 1936 formalised his departure from the throne. In abdicating, Edward ceased to be king overnight, yet he retained the title Duke of Windsor, granted by his brother, King George VI. Even here, however, the Hertz style was withheld from his wife. The monarchy recalibrated status carefully. The removal of the crown did not automatically erase all rank, but it demonstrated that ultimate authority over titles rests within constitutional mechanisms, not sentiment. Abdication reveals a core truth. The highest title of all, that of monarch, is not immune to removal. Parliament must consent, but the structure allows for it. The crown survives by transferring authority, not clinging to individual tenure. That capacity is a stabilizing force. Moving further upward, we encounter the question of regency and incapacity. Should a monarch become unable to perform duties due to illness or incapacity, the Regency Acts allow for a regent to assume functions. The sovereign does not lose the crown, but effective power shifts. Titles tied to active authority become ceremonial. This is not a demotion, yet it reshapes operational control. The enforcement lies again in statute. Parliament determines the regent, typically the next in line over the age of 18. The monarchy continues, but authority becomes delegated. In constitutional terms, this is a temporary transfer of sovereign function. It illustrates how power can be separated from title without formally removing it. The next rule concerns treason. Under British law, Treason is an offence against the sovereign and the state. Conviction historically carried forfeiture of titles and estates. While modern applications are rare, the principle remains embedded in legal tradition. A royal convicted of treason would face consequences beyond personal disgrace. Here enforcement is judicial before it is royal. Courts determine guilt. Parliament may legislate consequences. The monarch cannot shield an individual from statutory penalty. The separation of powers becomes evident. The Crown stands above party politics, but it does not stand above law enacted by Parliament. Public perception often imagines the monarchy as insulated from consequence. In reality, it is constrained by legal architecture developed over centuries. Titles persist only insofar as they align with national law and public legitimacy. Another protocol involves marriage without sovereign consent. The Royal Marriages Act of 1772 once required descendants of George II to obtain the monarch's approval before marrying. Failure to do so rendered the marriage void in law. Although replaced by the Succession to the Crown Act 2013, which limits the requirement to the first 6 in line, the principle remains instructive. Marital decisions can affect succession and title. If a marriage breaches statutory requirement, the individuals may forfeit their place in line. That shift cascades through the hierarchy. Titles connected to succession may adjust accordingly. Again, Parliament shapes the boundary. The sovereign enforces within that boundary. As the hierarchy escalates, a pattern becomes clear. The closer a title sits to constitutional authority, the more actors become involved in its removal. Social discipline is private, peerage removal is parliamentary, abdication is multinational within the Commonwealth, regency is statutory, treason is judicial. Each step increases the gravity of consequence. Removal of a military patronage affects visibility. Removal of a dukedom alters hereditary standing. Removal of the crown itself changes the head of state. Yet there remains one final and rarely discussed protocol, one that sits at the intersection of monarchy and democracy. It concerns the fundamental principle that the crown exists by consent of Parliament, and if that consent were ever withdrawn, the implications would extend beyond a single title. It would reshape the monarchy itself. At the highest level, every royal title rests upon a single constitutional foundation: parliamentary sovereignty. The British monarch reigns by law, not by divine right in any practical sense. The crown is recognised because Parliament recognises it. That recognition is not ceremonial. It is the legal basis upon which the monarchy functions. Withdraw it, and the structure shifts at its core. This principle is seldom discussed because it is seldom threatened, yet it remains the ultimate protocol. Parliament can redefine the monarchy's scope, alter succession, and legislate its limitations. It has done so repeatedly across history. The Bill of Rights of 1689 curtailed monarchical power. The Act of Settlement of 1701 dictated religious qualifications for succession. More recently, the Succession to the Crown Act 2013 ended male preference primogeniture. In each case, hereditary structure adjusted overnight through statute. If Parliament were to legislate the removal of a royal title at the highest level, there would be no appeal beyond it. The sovereign would be bound to give royal assent by constitutional convention. That convention itself illustrates the point: the monarch does not refuse legislation passed by Parliament. Authority flows through law. This is why debates surrounding the removal of titles often return to Westminster. Public petitions may call for a dukedom to be stripped. Media commentary may intensify scrutiny. But unless legislation is introduced and passed, the title remains intact. The monarch cannot unilaterally erase a peerage created under parliamentary authority, nor can Parliament alter succession without formal procedure. The system is designed deliberately this way. It prevents impulsive action. It ensures that removal of rank reflects national consensus rather than temporary outrage. The stability of monarchy depends upon predictability of process. There is another dimension to this highest protocol. The monarchy exists not solely in the United Kingdom, but across Commonwealth realms. When Edward VIII abdicated, it required legislation not only in Westminster, but in the parliaments of Canada, Australia, South Africa and others. The crown is shared, yet legally distinct in each realm. A change at the top requires coordinated statutory recognition. Were Parliament ever to remove the sovereign entirely, it would not simply erase a title, it would initiate constitutional transformation. The United Kingdom would move toward republican structure. Titles attached to the crown would cease. Peerages might remain as social honours, but princely rank tied to the reigning monarch would dissolve. The entire hierarchy would recalibrate. Such an outcome remains hypothetical, yet its possibility explains the caution embedded in every lower-tier protocol. Titles are not decorative layers placed upon celebrity, they are structural elements in a constitutional framework. Removing one is never isolated, it signals institutional adjustment. Even within the present reign, subtle recalibrations demonstrate this principle. King Charles III has streamlined the concept of a working royal. Not every prince or princess performs official duties. Visibility now reflects function. Though titles may remain, their operational weight varies. The message is measured, service justifies standing. Public understanding often lags behind this internal logic. Many assume that birth guarantees permanence, yet history suggests otherwise. Titles endure only when aligned with law, conduct, and constitutional necessity. When misalignment occurs, mechanisms exist to restore equilibrium. What emerges from examining these protocols is not fragility, but resilience. The monarchy has survived civil war, abdication, world war, and scandal precisely because its titles are governed by rule rather than impulse. Authority to remove them is dispersed deliberately. The sovereign exercises discretion. Parliament legislates structural change. Courts uphold law. The Commonwealth recognises shared sovereignty. Each actor balances the others. That balance prevents arbitrary collapse while allowing decisive action when required. The final insight is this: removal of a title is not primarily about punishment. It is about protecting the integrity of the institution. Whether the matter concerns a dormant Hirsch style, a relinquished patronage, a revoked peerage, or the abdication of a king, the purpose is continuity. Continuity of hierarchy, continuity of constitutional order, continuity of public trust. The British monarchy endures because it can adapt without surrendering structure. Titles may appear permanent, yet they exist within a system designed to correct itself. And in that correction lies the true power behind every coronet, every dukedom, and every princely style. They endure not by tradition alone, but by the rule of law that sustains them.